Everybody ready? Welcome to the State House. We are here today to address the budget. During the pandemic, many states shuttered and locked down their economies. They closed virtually all of the businesses and enacted draconian restrictions. We did not. We took a better approach. We never closed, and it worked. We took reasonable steps, careful steps. They were limited, measured, and temporary actions designed to limit only those establishments and activities that involved the personal contact which created the high risk of infections. We combated the virus without crippling the economy, and business continued in South Carolina. This is one reason that South Carolina is the 10th fastest growing state in the nation. What else did we do? We froze new spending and held the government steady at the 2019 spending levels. We were able to avoid cutting services, raising taxes, or borrowing money. Other states did those things. As a result, South Carolina's economy not only survived, but we thrived, generating over $1 billion in surplus. This has placed our state in a stronger financial position than virtually every other state in the country. That's because we were thinking ahead, and now we must continue to think ahead. This year, my executive budget proposed investments to ensure that South Carolina's future workforce possesses the education and skills necessary to compete for jobs and capital and win, both nationally and internationally. And once again, the General Assembly has embraced an unprecedented number of my executive budget proposals. The state budget includes 166 of my proposals, totaling $1.58 billion out of a $10.8 billion budget. We have forged a successful partnership, a partnership that has produced another resounding win for the people of South Carolina and the prosperity of all the people of South Carolina. Last year, I proposed that we make a transformative investment in early childhood education by expanding full-day kindergarten for every at-risk 4-year-old child in the state. This expansion will allow parents to choose the public or private provider that meets their child's educational needs. South Carolina's at-risk children with each passing year will increasingly arrive at school prepared and eager to learn and on track to make continued lifelong learning progress. This state budget maintains our continued commitment to attract and retain our most talented teachers through a $1,000 across-the-board pay raise. While this is not the $3,000 across-the-board raise I'd proposed before the pandemic hit, I am confident that the General Assembly shares my commitment to making future investments that will further improve South Carolina's national ranking for average teacher pay and that will attract and keep our best and brightest teachers in the classroom where they want to be. It is critical that parents in South Carolina have confidence that their children are safe and secure while at school. In 2018, I promised the parents of this state that we would place a certified law enforcement school resource officer in every school, in every county, all day, every day. This state budget fulfills that promise. In addition, this state budget provides funding to place a school nurse in every school in our state, and it provides that every school will have additional access to a mental health counselor. Future prosperity requires that our colleges, universities, and technical colleges are accessible and affordable to all the sons and daughters of South Carolina. 3 years ago, I proposed a tuition freeze at every public college, university, and technical college. The General Assembly agreed all those years. So for the 3rd year in a row, we have frozen tuition at our state's public colleges, universities, and technical colleges. This state budget includes my proposal to boost financial aid for students from lower income households. By increasing this aid to $80 million, every South Carolinian who qualifies for federal needs-based financial aid or Pell Grants will have the necessary financial assistance to attend any in-state, public, private, independent college, university, or historically black college or university. Every one of my executive budgets has proposed that we boost funding for workforce training. That is one of the keys to our future. This state budget provides an additional $40 million for high-demand jobs, skills, training. This includes programs like Ready SC, which provides direct training for manufacturers who locate or expand their businesses in our state, and includes additional workforce scholarships and grants so more South Carolinians can receive skill-based certificates and accreditations at our state's 16 technical colleges. In addition, this state budget addresses the much-needed repairs at our aging state-owned buildings and infrastructures on campus of our public colleges, universities, and technical colleges. As I have recommended, we should pay down the state's deferred maintenance liability with cash rather than borrowing it. This will ensure that institutions of higher education do not pass on the repayment of debt to students and parents through tuition and fee hikes. To keep South Carolina safe, we must maintain a robust law enforcement presence and properly fund the police. Our state law enforcement agencies continue to lose valuable and experienced personnel because they are unable to remain competitive with pay and benefits. This budget dedicates over $21.1 million in new dollars to law enforcement, public safety, and first response agencies for recruitment and retention. This includes the pay raises I proposed in my executive budget for troopers, state law enforcement division agents, fire, wildlife officers, probation agencies, and corrections officers. Broadband. Broadband is no longer a luxury. Broadband is a necessity, essential to ensuring access and opportunity to all, especially in the rural areas. Emergency response, health care access, education, all of these increasingly rely on high-speed internet access. This budget provides an additional $10 million in state funds to continue the expansion of broadband into all areas of the state through public and private partnerships. Finally, on earmarks, there's been much discussion about earmarks. I must applaud the General Assembly for passing the most transparent and accountable budget in modern times. After decades of overriding the vetoes of successive governors, the leadership of the Senate and House of Representatives took unprecedented steps to publicly disclose the sponsors and recipients of earmarked appropriations, appropriations that in past were shielded from public view, debate, and scrutiny virtually completely. However, public transparency must be absolute and uncompromised in order to maintain the public's trust and confidence in state government. Disclosure of the sponsor and recipient, as I mentioned above, is not enough. The bulk of these earmarked appropriations still lacks sufficient context, description, explanation of merit, and that is the justification of how the recipient intends to spend the funds. It's not there. Also, no matter how deserving the project, the public must be confident that accountability measures are in place to ensure that these funds, their money, are ultimately spent appropriately by the recipient. For these reasons, I must veto 226 of these earmarked appropriations totaling $152.5 million. Because these earmarked appropriations are bundled together in 7 different proviso subsections, it will require me to veto many of my own executive budget proposals and projects because they are included in the bundle. There's a better way for the taxpayers. Once again, I call on the General Assembly to consider my proposal to create public merit-based competitive grant processes for these types of appropriations. Such processes would be administered by the state agencies, and the funds would be made available only to entities who demonstrate community support and possess missions consistent with the policy, goals, and outcomes intended by the General Assembly. Further, all grant applications and award criteria would be placed online before the funds are awarded, thereby allowing public scrutiny by everyone and total transparency. So in closing, let me say to my colleagues in the General Assembly, the people of South Carolina have benefited greatly from our continued cooperation, communication, and collaboration. Let us continue to work together vigorously, thereby ensuring future generations of South Carolina can keep winning and keep prospering. The best is yet to come.